JayEmm on Cars is sponsored by Car Vertical. With just a registration number, or even better, a VIN, Car Vertical will search over 20 European databases to find out whether any car you're looking at has a hidden past. They can see if a vehicle was used as a taxi, stolen, suffered fire damage, or involved in a crash, even when it wasn't written off, so could pass other checks. Car Vertical is now an essential tool in my car buying kit, putting all the information I need to know together in one easy-to-read report. Even better, if you follow the link in the description down below, you'll get 10% off. A big thank you to them for being today's sponsor.
Hello everybody, for today's video I am once again the guest of the very lovely George and Caitlin, the youngest regional organisers in the Porsche Club of Great Britain, and they run the flock in Region 2, that's Scotland North. So I'm out here in the beautiful British countryside enjoying a classic Porsche. Now I have recently said that I am on the hunt for another car. In truth, that's probably going to be a little while away because I've been spending a lot of money lately. But, as with all good petrol heads, I'm constantly working out what the next purchase will be. In the previous installment of this, or at least the last one that I filmed, I drove a Trabant. And now we're taking a little hop over the border back into West Germany and testing this beautiful Porsche 944 convertible. Last time I was up here, I drove a regular 944 S2 Coupe and rather enjoyed it. It wasn't the fastest thing in the world, it didn't make the best noise, but it was just a really enjoyable car. Now this is a very different example, not just because someone's lopped the roof off. It belongs to Cara, and it previously belonged to a gentleman who spent an awful lot of money on it, doing more or less a nut and bolt restoration. He then resprayed it in this colour of Peridot green. I wasn't sure whether this was actually a real historic Porsche colour, because let's be honest, you look at this and if someone told me, oh yeah, this is a colour they did way back in the 70s, I believe you. No, this was the colour introduced on the much later Cayman R, of which I have driven an example, and I've got to say this car wears it really rather well. The 944 S2 was something of an update for the 944, featured turbo-style bodywork and a much larger engine. 3 litres here. The last car I actually drove was a 981 Boxster S. This car is about 100 horsepower down on that, making around 211. But that's still more than enough to keep up with a Volvo XC40 being driven at just about half the speed limit. The 944 S2 convertible is a real oddball because you can tell quite easily Porsche didn't really have much money at the time, so development of this car was rather basic. They took a 944 S2, they cut the roof off, they stopped it tearing itself in half, and then they called it a day. There are a few small differences. This has frameless windows. I would love to show you some pictures of it with the roof up, but honestly, it was such a faff getting it down, I'm traumatized. I'm not going to try it at all. The gearbox in this car is okay. It's got a lot of play in it, but the action itself is actually quite nice. The clutch I'm having to be slightly wary of. This is pretty much the sole problem with this car. If you put your foot all the way down, the clutch, it likes it down there. It wants to stay. So just being a little bit wary of that. There is, unsurprisingly, quite a bit of scuttle shake, even at fairly low speeds. But in a car like this, I'm not sure that really bothers me all that much. Now, one of the reasons I was so desperate to get back in any 944 at all is because I think this could be the ideal kind of car for me to buy as my next classic. Here is my reasoning. It's from a brand that I generally quite like, but it's a car that I've never actually owned, and that's important. I feel with all this wondrous variety in the car world, going and buying something you've already had before just seems, well, wasteful to me. So I want to try and explore new ideas, try new things. It's part of the wondrous tapestry of life. This also has, compared with the Trabi, certainly quite a bit of poke, so you can still enjoy it in a reasonably sporty fashion. Now there's an extremely demanding section of road coming up shortly, and we'll see just how well this car fares. It looks gorgeous. Okay, soft top convertibles, not generally my thing, but I tend to judge them with the roof down, and I've got to say this has got a real look about it. I'm toying with the idea of perhaps buying another Lotus XL. If I buy any Lotus, it'll be one of those or an Esprit, and the fact is I don't think I'm going to have the budget for an Esprit. Oh, the steering's actually quite nice, got a bit of weighting to it, probably better truthfully than the Boxster I just got out of. Was that? Oh, that was the Lancia Ypsilon or whatever they call it. I can't remember what they badge it as here. Weird things, honestly, strange old cars. There we go. Heel and toe, quite nice and easy. Turn in. This is really tight here. Through. And you can cut the corner, but not with oncoming traffic. Through. Oh, down. Rev it out a bit. Makes some noise, this car. Not a great noise though. Oh, hee hee. She washes wide a bit, and you can do it, but she's not super happy about it. And that's okay. I got no problem with that. I can keep up a pace, and there's a challenge to driving this. You know, you've got to really work with it. Oddly, over that section, which is really demanding, the scuttle shape wasn't that bad. It's quite sprightly, actually. You know, it's certainly quick enough. I don't feel like I need a car that's any faster than this. Certainly not as the enjoyable classic. I recently took out a TVR Griffith 500, and that was very enjoyable, but I do wonder, would you really need the 5-litre V8? Would something a little bit lesser be adequate? And this car would seem to imply, yes, it would. One of the real appeals, of course, of a convertible is that when you are in this absolutely breathtaking scenery, you can enjoy it. You can really, really get a sense of just everything around you. It makes life so much more enjoyable, and makes the fact that these cars aren't the quickest that much less of an issue. So how's this as a car? Well, storage is not great. The regular 944 has a very oddly sized boot, and because you've then lost the rear hatch, it's suffered a little bit, but you've got enough room to have a weekend or a week away, depending on how you pack. I'm a little bit more difficult than most because wherever I go, I tend to take loads of camera kit, and that robs quite a bit of space. However, you do also have the back seats, and you kind of have to wonder what it was Porsche were thinking when they developed this car, because with the roof down, I don't think you get anyone in there. Unless you actually just took the roof off, which I don't think you can, you're not getting anyone behind you. In truth, the seats are probably there for insurance reasons. That's why a lot of Japanese sports cars of the 90s got these practically useless little rear seats. Apparently it made insurance cheaper. Whether that still applies now or not, I couldn't say. This is magnificent. You do get cars, of course, which still have plenty of glass in them, but there's nothing quite the same as a proper convertible. Ooh, you get it spinning at 3,000-4,000 RPM. This car can really surprise you with the pace it carries. The convertible, of course, will have put on a few kilos over the regular car too, so I'm very impressed to see how well it does. The electronics in here are not especially brilliant, and one of the things putting me off a 944 is the fact that everyone I speak to tends to have had one of two experiences with them. Either it's been good as gold, didn't put a foot wrong, years and years of joyous, worry-free motoring, or the car was nothing but a nightmare and hassle and they couldn't get rid of it quick enough. As it happens, this particular car was picked up because the person who did all the work on it, and they spent a lot of money on this thing, couldn't sell it. Probably because of the colour change. People want, at the very least, an authentic period colour for their Porsches, and this is not that. And that's a shame because it's fabulous and was probably one of the better examples of a 944 out there. These are pretty much bang on budget. I'd be realistically looking at spending between sort of £10,000 to £15,000, I think, because I want something somewhat accessible. I don't want something ruinous. I want to be able to use it without worrying about it, and quite frankly, I don't have that much money. And this is smack bang in the middle of my target budget range, so you're going to be looking at about 12 to 13,000 pounds for one of these in reasonable nick. You see, the big problem with the 944 in general is I know exactly what I'm like. I would look at the convertibles, having now driven one and quite liked it, and knowing that it's probably a generally fairly good idea, and Porsche content does fairly well on the channel, and I've got Porsche friends and I'm sure I could do something with it. But I'd spend all my time looking at convertibles, then start thinking, you know, I think I'd prefer a coupe. Then I'd wind up looking at 968s, and they're just too much money. You're looking at really probably like 25 grand for some of those. So I just don't think it would work out. And that's a shame, because actually, from where I'm sat now, this is an absolutely delightful car. You still need to drive it and be careful of it, because it won't flatter fools, but it will reward. You can still have plenty of fun, you can carry plenty of pace with it, and it's a little bit different. It's quirky, it's weird. Okay, prices might be much higher than they were even just a few years ago, but in comparison with many other sort of not even proper classics, these are quite good value. This is utterly delightful. I also do kind of like the fact that it's not that loud. As nice as the 981 was, my word, it was noisy. Sounded like a bleating Group C car going through the forest. It wasn't even going that quick. This, you can feel like you're driving hard and you're just not going that fast, and I think that is something that I want from a classic, which is handy because that probably means whatever I get is going to be that much cheaper to buy and to run as well. So a 944 is definitely on the radar. What do you reckon I should try next? I am open to suggestions, particularly if you happen to have an example of what it is you want to suggest for me to try. So if someone can suggest that I try a Carrera GT, I'd be very grateful. Anyway, that I think is enough from me for now. Please like, comment down below, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye bye.